Let's jump in and talk about the Apple event, Pat. I mean, geez, you can't really. I think my best tweet, I tweeted like 40 times during the Apple event. And the best tweet was the one about 35 minutes into the watches where I said, I'm bored. Can we please get to the iPhone 14? That was the one that got the most engagement. I had a bunch of tweets about the watches, the Ultra Watch, the Pro Watch, the Watch 8. I watched and then fell asleep while they talked about watches. Now, listen, I'm a mechanical watch guy. I like real watches. I do appreciate some of the technology. I definitely like some of the health, wellness. And I know, Pat, you're an Apple Watch wearer, so I'm not knocking it. I just felt there was a little bit too much time spent on the watch. I'm not sure about that category overall, but it was a pretty big reveal, like in terms of volume. I think it was a somewhat meh reveal in terms of the next iPhone, if I'm being totally honest with you.
That's all like we asked for. That's all we asked for is honesty.
Yeah, well, you know how we are. We tend to be a little nicer to Apple than we should be on this show.
Yes, true.
Now, if you see the irony in what I'm saying, the truth is we actually are a little nicer than we should be because it just wasn't that interesting to me. Now, if you're an adventurer, cool. The Ultra, that new watch, pretty cool for the rugged wearer. If I start running in the Sahara Desert, I'm going to be very excited. I don't run, period. So not going to happen for me. If you're looking for the SE, which I called the Play School version, PLAYSKOOL version of the Apple Watch. So now for $300, you can get most of the functions and features that you got in the one that was $400. I don't know. I think that's just like more different and not necessarily better. But Apple does that really well. And then they sell a whole bunch of them. And probably with the SE, you have to buy a charger separate. Does it even come with one? I can't remember that fact, Pat.
No, they're being environmentally friendly. So
that's why they don't come on one?
Exactly.
Because you might already have one.
Right. They decided to remove the $5 BOM cost to them as well.
Yeah. So anyways, it's probably Qualcomm's fault. That's what I've heard in the past. But anyways, so that's kind of what's going on in the watches. There's some interesting news about satellites, but we're going to kind of cover that separately in a few minutes. So I guess I'll talk about the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro. That's where everybody really cared about. 14, as far as I could tell, didn't have too much going on. Still, it's the A15, still has a notch. What I thought was kind of cool was the Plus model coming in at 6.7. Now, I use Apple, just for everybody to know. I'm not, I do talk a little smack, but I am a customer. I'm actually on an Apple machine right in front of me right now. I run the ARM Mac right now, too. So I feel like that gives me credence to complain about things. But what I can't understand is, the $1,000 phone, and by the time you really put the memory in it that we need, I don't know about you, but my kids come to me about every 3 months and tell me their iPhones are over memory because the way people use them with all the video, the starter device is a non-starter. But can we just acknowledge that the starter is, unless you're a really efficient cloud user and you're okay with all your stuff always having to be accessed in the cloud, it's not really efficient with the on-device storage. So by the time you get the device you really probably need, you're spending well over $1,000. The question mark that I had is, for over $1,000, what are you getting with the 14 that you didn't get with the 13, if you have the 13? And I really couldn't figure much. I do like the bigger screen. I'm a big guy. My jeans are big. My pockets are big. I can use a bigger device. So I'll probably upgrade it at some point, but I'm not upgrading it with any expectations of getting any real benefit. The last thing I'll just say about it, because I know there were a bunch of other announcements. There was some cool health tracking and stuff like that. That's a path they're on. I think it's talked about a lot. Nothing got me super excited. You can know when your car crashes. You can know when if you fall over. And I know they're doing period tracking now, which I'm sure is going to be very controversial in the women's community. It's something that's going to certainly stir debate because it's just more data being captured. But back to the 14, Pat, the notchless design. Not quite sure I get it, though, because the notchless design is great, but now you just have the little rim of screen above where the camera is. Is that any better? Can't figure that out. To me, it just kind of feels like more of the same, little bit larger, slightly better camera. I know we're Snapdragon aficionados, Pat, but isn't like this going to be about equal to the last iteration of the Qualcomm Snapdragon camera? So you're not getting a lot new, yet sadly, I'm still going to probably buy it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, this was one of the most boring Apple events that I've ever personally watched. And not that I don't use Apple, I mean, I have an Apple Watch, which means I have an Apple phone, but this is my main gear right here, which is, the Samsung Fold 4 as my go-to phone. But the way as a research analyst, I measure these is by black and white. Like, what is it that I can do now with iPhone, watch, and AirPods that I couldn't do before? And so what we're talking about is a shade of gray. And iPhone, as an example, where's the 10x zoom lens for super close-ups? It's not there. I mean, once again, for the camera, we're talking about being able to take better night pictures. Not that there's not value, but there's really nothing to swing you around the room. And in fairness, you have to compare the 14 to the 11, which is where most people would upgrade from. And there are some demonstrable black and white things, but even the new Watch Series 8. I mean, you add temperature sensors. I mean, great. I've had that on this ring for years, and and again, I know everybody doesn't have one of these Aura rings, but there's just really nothing new. Even the Watch
Ultra
Ultra.
than the watch, Pat. The
What?
ring. It's less than the watch. The ring.
Yes, it is. It is much less. And then if you look at the Apple Watch Ultra, which, bigger face, but there's nothing black and white that this can do versus, a high-end exercise watch from Garmin. And this is really who I think they're going after, which is, underwater dives, long hikes, and things like that. I mean, even, and we'll get into this later, even the SOS capability was, announced by, SpaceX and T-Mobile. So really nothing brand new. But that doesn't mean that people won't buy it. Doesn't mean that I won't buy it. But I just thought it lacked black and white demonstrable things. I mean, when are we going to get to the point where the Apple Watch can test glucose? So, you essentially have the triad of, sleep, exercise, movement, and caloric intake. That would be freaking amazing, right?
What about some sort of like deep regenerative scan that can tell you like if you have a likely condition? I don't know. I want some sort of like genetic testing in this watch. I mean, at least in the AirMate version of it, right? We should get something more. Like it should be able to tell me if I'm going to die in the next 20 years and how it's going to happen. I want a little more. Pat. I want more inference out of this thing. I mean, I'm joking, but
You're half joking. I mean, no, I think we want more. It's just like, so what, right? What? Tell me something that is either not blatantly obvious or that you couldn't tell me multiple generations ago. I can't even tell you what generation this watch is, as there's no new features that I feel are relevant. So, anyways, I thought it was a pretty big snoozer.
All right. Well, glad we spent so much time on it. You and me, we can't resist though a little bit of. I really did say, like, what's up with the AirMate? So is the SE is like the Casio version of the watch?
Yeah.
You got the Pro is the AirMate. I mean, honestly, I want the Audemars or maybe a Patek Philippe version, so they can charge like $35,000 for a version that has like a band that has like a little logo on it or something.
Yeah.
You know what? People will pay it, Pat, and that is why they do it.